He was tall, medium and short, and had an athletic build, or was running to fat. The only clear agreement was about the jeans and the grey hoodie, which made him a match for about 200 other young men in the vicinity that afternoon. CCTV recordings examined later lost track of him minutes before the incident, and lost him again as a pinprick in the crowd just seconds after it. The Prime Minister interrupted his holidays to visit the scene and consult on camera with the Chief Constable. On TV, he pronounced himself to be shocked and horrified by this appalling and inexplicable act, before commiserating with the bereaved families and promising that the culprit would be found and prosecuted to the full extent of the law. Police appeals for drivers who had passed through the area to come forward produced immediate responses. Like a storm or earthquake, it was the kind of incident that compelled complete strangers to seek solace in sharing the horror. Men swore out loud they'd have reacted more quickly after the mayhem had started. Women sucked on their teeth and silently thanked God it wasn't them or their families. Parents of small children held them just a little bit tighter. "Good God, that's only a couple of miles from here," said Alison. "Didn't we pass near there ourselves earlier?" "I guess we must have been a few hundred yards away." Michael's immediate instinct was to put whatever distance he could between the incident and themselves. "We drove by Waterloo Station, but so did tens of thousands of other people, I imagine." The couple were among a group of families and friends waiting for visiting to start at the Greenacres care home in Battersea. This wasn't the first time Michael Beaumont had introduced one of his girlfriends to his grandma, but it was the first occasion in the 3 months since she'd moved from the flat he shared with her and into the home. It was just 8 weeks since he'd met Alison, and he was still getting to know her, but Michael already knew enough to be sure that he wanted her to meet his grandma. Not that he needed Rose's approval, but there was no doubt she was the only person whose good opinion he cared about. Rose had brought him up as her own child, and he had her to thank for everything he was or had ever achieved. Alison had joined the other visitors gathered around the TV news and was absorbed by the continuing live coverage of the scene at Waterloo Bridge. By now, the first photographs of some of the murdered children were available. Small, hopeful faces looked out from beneath peaked school caps or smiled from sunlit beaches. 3 of the dead children had been identified, while 1 remained unnamed until all next of kin had been informed. What seemed to be an unending series of witnesses were queuing to give their accounts, and already the police were expressing concern at the apparent disparity in what had been seen. All they had in common was their expressions of disbelief and horror. Many wept as they described their perspectives, and Michael saw Alison wipe away a tear from the corner of her eye. He went towards her, taking her hand, and she half turned to acknowledge him, attempting a smile. "Those children," she said. "Those poor families." The clickety-click of heels on the hard floor alerted them to the approach of the nurse who'd unlocked the doors that kept the residence secure. Michael felt the need to shift attention back to the main purpose of their visit and wanted to reassure Alison one last time. "I always hope for the best, but mentally I prepare for the worst." She smiled more freely and squeezed his hand in return. "It'll be fine, don't worry." Her accent was her souvenir from the 8 years she'd spent working as a tour guide on the other side of the world, and from where she'd returned only a few months ago. "I promise not to bite her if she doesn't bite me." The couple tagged along at the back of the group that proceeded through the main corridor, one or more of them peeling off in turn as they passed the open doors of the residents' private rooms. Michael glanced into them, and in almost every case saw that TV screens were tuned to the terrible news from central London. "Does she always know who you are?" asked Alison. They'd arrived outside the door of Rose's room, number 23, and paused for a moment before entering. "Not always, not recently, and it feels really weird when she doesn't. It's like someone you know well has had..."